I sincerely apologize to every Chronomancer player out there for this video footage. Hello everyone. So this is just a very short video about a conversation I've had on Reddit and I've had in the past few days with quite a lot of people actually. The question was, what is needed to be ready for raids as a new player? I think all of us agree that it's important to be geared at least in exotic gear, maybe even be looking towards ascended weapons already. But then many community members say something like, you are ready if you can do 20,000 DPS on the golem. Or this person I'm responding to here suggested 25,000 DPS as a reasonable benchmark to clear before you enter your first raid as a DPS player. I disagree with that. I think the number to aim for should be different for each class. The topic at hand in the last conversation I've had was Power Chronomancer. So how much do you need to clear with Power Chrono? In the background I show you what would qualify as, yep, go into your first raid with this. If you demand 25,000 DPS from a Power Chronomancer. On the other hand, for a Banner Berserker, 25,000 is a perfectly reasonable barrier to clear. Although I still think it's a little on the lower side, but perhaps that's okay with exotic gear, especially exotic weapons. But clearly, we need different standards for different classes. My suggestion is as follows. Be able to hit 80% of the benchmark. For Power Chronomancer, that would be at around 31,000 DPS, accounting for the fact that you don't have ascended gear as a new raider, and having no ascended weapon hurts a lot on power DPS, make it 30,000 DPS or 29,000 DPS, depending on the gearing of the player. But the most important thing, adapt the requirement to the class the newbie is going to play. Do not set a goal that is literally impossible to fail. If you have an 80% benchmark requirement, make it 75% for raiders with exotic weapons and trinkets, the new player is forced to at least have played with the class a bit to know where the damaging buttons are. I'm planning to make a longer video where I show for every single DPS build in the game, that I have geared at least, how to easily reach 80% of the benchmark. But the Chronomancer rotation I showed here with the 25,000 DPS, I think we all agree. That person would not be prepared for Veil Guardian, for example. I'm sorry to say it like that, but this person needs guidance before going into the raid. They are pressing random buttons. A lot of people like to say that it's not about DPS, it's about mechanics. That's 100% true. But I think that's an even better reason to at least force the trainee to spend a few minutes at the golem before the first raid, so they can get used to their key bindings, know their damaging skills, etc. Get them comfortable with their class as much as you can, so their mind can then focus on the mechanics during the raid. I'm not suggesting that they should do that much damage in a real raid fight, by the way. That's not the point of the golem practice at all. The golem practice is there to ensure that they at least theoretically have once visited their build's rotation and maybe can fall back on some simple patterns from that rotation while they are raiding. For a Chronomancer, that would mean, even though they don't do everything perfectly, that they maybe use Sword 5, Phantasmal Disenchanter, Signet of the Ether, Sword 5, Phantasmal Disenchanter, in that order. That's a good fallback pattern even in stressful raid situations. But a 25,000 benchmark requirement just isn't sharp enough to test that at the golem. They will come out of their golem practice not having learned anything because they immediately clear the hurdle without any learning. I think it's very important to introduce new players to raiding and organizing raid trainings a lot. Without new players, this game mode that we all love is doomed to die basically. However, it should also be made clear to new raiders that raiding is not entirely without effort. Don't be elitist about it, but I believe there is a welcoming and inviting way to promote learning. Pretending that the rotation I've shown here is just fine for raids, that's not going to do them any favor in the long run, certainly. It is better to take them to the golem, explain the rotation, and within 30 minutes or so they will easily be able to hit the 80% on their class. Isn't that a good start into a raiding career? That's much more encouraging than leaving them on their own and saying, "Oh, you did so well," while they're at the bottom of the DPS log. Like, does that feel good, being the last person in the DPS log for weeks and months because you're never taught how to play it properly? So, in conclusion, teach rotations, promote learning, and ask for 80% of the benchmark. Then a player is ready for raids. Otherwise, they don't have to be ready for raids to clear 25k. A final note. There is obviously one alternative. You could also not ask for any kind of golem practice for new raiders. Just ask for the proper gear and go into raiding with them. This is a perfectly viable path, and many players have started raiding like that. For these players, it will later on be important to get to the golem, maybe after a few trainings, and then get to learn their rotation basics. Again, not by demanding 25,000 DPS, but for example 80% of the benchmark. But asking them to go to the golem to bench will intimidate them. But if you then make the requirement a joke, then it's also pointless that you've intimidated them. So it's a weird sort of middle ground that nobody could really want. Okay, do you agree with that or disagree? Why? Tell me all about it.